Okay, today is May 25th, 2022. Leticia calling Servin. Um, I just got a compliment on my shirt. I woke up, brushed my teeth at like 6:30 because I'm a fatty fatkins. I went to sleep and I didn't feel good. I still don't feel good. I still have some congestion from the pollen and any kind of pollutants in the air and everything like that. So that's a lovely home. It's beautiful. There's like cobblestone outside of it. It's gorgeous. I love that. I'm all crusty today. My nose hurts really bad. I've got some flakiness. I need to shower up before heading anywhere else, I guess. So I stopped outside of one of the facilities that I go to, the different types of facilities, with my insurance, I get coverage through all different locations nationwide. So they get paid for my daily access or whatever. And it was only a discrepancy with the Anytime Fitness because apparently when you sign up at one location, they're the only ones that get paid for your access nationwide, which doesn't make any sense, honestly. To me, everybody should have their little, take in it because truckers use Anytime Fitnesses and stuff like that, and business people, and they use it to shower up if they're traveling and whatever. So it's not even just me, like a homeless person. It's somebody and I don't even consider myself like homeless first. I consider myself just sort of like a wandering artist, I guess, but like just doing the things that I enjoy. And then of course I'm disabled, so that's what finances me to do these things. And then through my insurance of the disability, that's, it's another perk that I get little benefits here and there. And then I know that if I go anywhere and I need to use the hospital, that it'll more than likely be covered. So I'm very blessed, and I know that. I'm extremely blessed for having my disability, and most people see that like as a discouraging thing. Like, you should be proud of your differences. You should be proud of your flaws in that way. And that's why I disclose mine publicly, because I'm very proud that I can confidently accept my flaws. And I know that it's embarrassing sometimes for me to relay some of this information and some of the things that I've lived through, or some of the things that I have opinions on that I've seen here and there. But I figure you only live as yourself once, and I was going to make the best of it, because I years ago was over 300 pounds and was so lethargic, wasn't able to lift my arms over my head to do my hair even. I was so depressed, and everybody was telling me, yeah, I'm gonna help you with this and this and this. And even after my divorce, somebody asked me too, they were like, well, what led you to being homeless? What led you to this? And I guess I get new subscribers every day, so I have to explain myself all the time. I hate that. Absolutely hate it. That's why I tried to make these videos. I didn't title them well. I went off on rants on a lot of them, so a lot of people don't get the point of it. They don't get the point of my blog. So the point of it is that my daughter was ripped away from me 6 years ago, and after this long of being removed from her life, I decided that the only way I'm going to be able to feasibly reach out without getting accused of criminal activity is to make videos like this, so that I can relay all the information that I would like to relay to her in a manner to where she'll understand, yeah, this is what happened. This is what my mother had to live through while we were forced to be apart. So, interesting. So anyway, but yeah, I don't really, I was raised in Catholic school growing up. My father was Hispanic, straight from Mexico, illegally. He was like 21 or 22 years old. They didn't really have documentation on births or anything like that, so his records are kind of like iffy. And so the same thing with all of my Hispanic side of the family, and that's what I was raised around, was mostly my Hispanic side, and not any of my mother's side of the family, which was white and stemmed from Montana. So my mother was only approximately 15 or so when she met my father, who was 21, 22. And my grandfather signed over on them being able to marry. So they actually got married. And you can obviously see, the problem within that entire scenario, because this is back in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s. So they met at a restaurant called the Wagon Wheel that burned down now, for good measure. I mean, apparently if they're allowing, rapists to go around and seduce little girls that are salad preps. So my mother always blamed herself for wanting to have the encounters with the older men, because she didn't have a very good father figure in herself, I guess. But and she never went to therapy then thereafter. So my mother and my father had 5 kids together, and I'm the middle of that, outcome. And my father was doing really, really disgusting sexual things with my sister growing up. Like he would lock them into into her room together. They would lock themselves into the garage together. My mother would accuse my sister of sleeping with my father. It was a huge, scary ordeal my whole life. I remember my first memory being that my dad was beating my mother over the head with a broom and blood was running down her face, and I was screaming horrified, that's my mommy, and my mother didn't want me. So there's plenty of other relayed information about that, where she was very happy to tell me multiple times that, that I was a preemie, and that nobody knew she was pregnant, and that I almost died so many times, but she saved my life. And I tell her, it was God. It was the godly people, the positivity in the world. And I understand, for me, God is also the balance of the negativity. And I understand that God speaks through circumstances and situations and people that might not be the most beneficial, the healthiest. Okay? So I ended up, there's a lot of different license plates around here. Anyway, I ended up, I don't want everybody to get on camera, a bunch of people driving by. So anyway, my family was really dysfunctional, extremely dysfunctional, but the one godsend that I had growing up was that my parents allotted me private schooling at Catholic schools. So that's where I became very well educated and well versed and morally sound in that way, from all of these very good people that I interacted with outside of the home. And at home it was constant warfare. It was constant bickering. It was not just bickering, it was psychological warfare. It was all the time we had to, my father would get mad, and I would say it was approximately once a month where he would get so mad, and it happened more than that. I'm just saying, in general, at least once a month, my father would find a reason around a celebratory date or something that was supposed to be a positive outcome of something. He would always turn it into a negative. He would always find some way to place the attention on him so that he could have us following him around like puppies, trying to apologize for things we had no idea what was going on. Generally, it was because of the sexual encounters that he was having with my sister. He was having problems with his own conscience. So he would take it out on all of his children, and he would threaten to kill us. He would threaten to kill my mother. He would threaten to kill all these things. He was a very violent person. And when he would actually act out, my mother even said that, at one point he threw a fastball fast enough to, because they were at a fair and they had that speed gun, that he had fast enough speed to where he could have ended up becoming a pitcher if he wanted to. But he was older. He had already had my mother in his life and the child. I'm sure everyone looked down on their relationship as well, because he was an older Hispanic man that came illegally from Mexico, and my mother was a naive little white girl that didn't have a good family home, and like they wanted to make a family themselves. That didn't turn out well, did it, Mommy? Did it, Daddy? No, it didn't. So I have issues from that I didn't disclose until I was 12 years old, and I tried to commit suicide for the first time. And nobody was called to check up on the family, to, check up on the allegations, when I told them in the hospital at that time that my father was doing all these things and touching me, and they didn't do anything about it. So after years of them placing me on psychiatric medications to dumb me down and to make sure that I just didn't speak out against it anymore, I was on Zoloft, high volumes of Zoloft for many years in high school, and instead of taking care of the perpetrators, taking care of this and that, they decided, well, there's nowhere to put these children. We're going to keep the family together, and that's how it's going to go, because my family learned to become very manipulative. Like, if you speak to my family, none of what I say is accurate to them, which is hilarious, because it's absolutely the God's honest truth. Like, it truly is. Like, and that's the sad part, is that I just wish that they would disclose these things openly and honestly without people frowning upon them for keeping it hush-hush, And my brother molested me growing up as well. When I spoke out with my family, they blamed me for it. That's the type of mentality that was going on. And I kept my mouth shut. I just cried all the time. I was in my own thoughts. I did a lot of drawing. I did a lot of painting. I did a lot of playing with my toys and playing with my rabbits, because at one point my parents were forced to spoil me in that way of getting me things, material possessions, and those animals, because they were being watched, in that way, because the schools knew. And if I wasn't like happy and whatever, even when we would have arguments later on, my father would unplug the phone to the house. He would take the jack out of because he knew about the electronics and being able to carry information and being able to be tapped into at any time. So that's where I learned all these weird conspiratory theories that actually turned out to be factual. And I learned a lot growing up through my father, who, he had to engage with the world, and it was brand new to him, because he was born and raised in a mud hut in Mexico. So he came from extreme poverty. And my family would always say, well, you don't have it bad. You've never had it bad. You don't know what hardship is. I'm sorry, what? I've been living out of my car for nearly 2 years now, and feeding off of whatever scraps I can manage. Scraps I can manage. Now, I'm not saying that I'm diving in dumpsters. I'm not that far gone. I'm very blessed. Like I've said, that's why I'm very clean. That's why when people interact with me face to face, they can't believe I'm homeless, because I know how to maintain in a way that is appropriate for society, appropriate for those around me, so that I don't look like an eyesore most of the time. Today, right now, I look like an eyesore because I fell asleep without, washing up properly, brushing my teeth, washing myself or anything. I just sort of rested. I did do some yoga prior to. And then this morning, I checked my weight. It was 174 this morning, exactly. So how is it that I heard a comedian saying something about how can you be a different weight when you go to bed, as opposed to when you wake up, and it is the bowel movements and everything like that, and the digestion. And I went to sleep at 178.8, and I woke up at 174. Same scale, same digital scale. So, but yeah, I'm very grateful that I'm still maintaining at a decent weight, because I'm very worried. This baby keeps expanding. My stomach keeps expanding, but fortunately I'm like maintaining. And somebody said something stupid about pillow stuffer, and I'm like, I wish. You want me to show you? It's disgusting. Like, it's absolutely disgusting. Let me show you. They said something about my fat rolls, and I'm like, yeah, don't talk about my fat rolls. I was working on that. That's disgusting. Look at how big it is. It's so big. Ew. And it's like soft right now because I didn't have any like food and everything. This is the softness from losing that 155 pounds. So I lost 155 pounds right before getting pregnant. And I was at 155 when I got pregnant. So I lost exactly the same amount that I weighed. And I thought that was miraculous, and I wanted to share my story. And then it was like, well, God pushed me into sharing more of my story, you know? Like, that's not the only thing that defines me. Look at how big it is. It's disgusting. It looks so gross. It doesn't look like it's that big right now because it's all soft. Oh God, I don't like it when he moves around. It's so weird. I don't care what people think. I don't care if they're disgusted or if they're attracted by it. That's really weird. That's super weird. Look at how gross. It's so soft right now. It's because I didn't overeat and everything. That's why last night with like certain photos and everything, it looks like I'm gigantic, and then other times it doesn't look like I'm so gigantic. But believe me, it's very, very difficult when I'm moving around. And I know that I was working on all this softness when I started working out and everything like that. And I have to change my frame of mind sometimes. So I know I was going off on a tangent with that story. I don't care about that, you know, like, that's not important to me. I don't need to be delving into all that trauma right now. But I am relaying it because people want to know. And that's how it is. When I meet new people, they're like, well, why are you crazy? Well, why are you living out of your car? And I'm like, well, let me tell you a few things. I've been in counseling therapy since I was like 12, since my first suicide attempt. I knew my family was crazy. Nobody did anything. When I was 18, I tried to talk to a detective about what had gone on. My sister spoke, and she told some horrific stories about my dad funneling bleach into her vagina after they would finish. I'm telling you, like, fucking gross, grotesque shit. Like, he would touch me, for one. And when I would walk around, he'd try to be pinching at me and everything like that. And I was a cutie little girl. I was just a chunky little girl. Like, didn't know what was going on. Nobody said that if it was okay or not. People knew in the community. I mean, you had to have known. If you saw us and everything, you should have known the signs and symptoms of sexual abuse and physical abuse. Because there were times where we couldn't even sit down because we were so bloody from my dad taking whatever cables and whipping us and everything like that. You have no idea how traumatic my childhood was. And that I've already suffered plenty. Like, I was enslaved when I was a child. So I haven't seen my father in 15 to 20 years because I was scared. And then at the same time, when I was on all the psychiatric medications, I thought for a moment, yeah, that's okay. Like, forgive him. Like, it'll be all right. Like, that's normal. No, it's really not normal. And I don't have to forgive him if I don't want to. He's never sought forgiveness. He's never apologized for any of the shit. He always has just stood his ground in thinking that the Bible says to him, in his deranged version of it, in his mind, that God wanted us to procreate with our children because of the fact that Adam and Eve, you know, had kids. And where did they breed with? And it's like, God made women for them. I don't understand. What is wrong with you? So he went off on that. He'd have these long discussions about how we were the devil and everything like that. And it's just like, whoa, he was preaching at us. It was like a cult, I swear to God. And my sister ran away when she was 17. Caused a huge fucking ordeal with the whole family. Well, she's 4 years older than me. So I was approximately, no, she's 6 years older than me. And so I was only like 11 years old. So when she left, I ended up having to take care of all the household, take care of everything. And that's not fair. Like, I was a child, and I shouldn't have had to, deal with all of that nonsense prior. I was already mothering before I even knew I was mothering, and I was the one always taking care of the dishes. My mother didn't do shit, believe me. She would sit on the couch with her glasses of milk because she had ulcers. She would complain that she was in pain. Then she would complain to the doctors and get a bunch of pain pills. Well, the reason you have ulcers is because you're in denial. You never actually fully went to therapy or anything to realize what the fuck is wrong with you psychologically and physically, to where it all physiologically, that's what it is. So when I speak these terms to her, she shuts down. She says, don't talk to me in that therapy talk. Then she turns around and she'll say things like, you didn't have it that bad. There are plenty of people in the world that have it worse than you. So you know that that is a narcissistic trait. We all know that now. We all know that that's a gaslighting trait. We all know how toxic that is. You know, I cannot deal with my family members. After all this time, I was homeless for almost 2 years. I was staying with her for a year after I'd gotten out of jail, after losing everything. And let me backtrack on that. After my horrendous childhood, I ended up moving down to Arkansas, where I'd followed my mother and my siblings because they had decided that that's where they wanted to live, because my parents had purchased rental properties down there. And after the divorce, my parents actually got divorced when I was 18. That's why I decided to speak out. And I forgot to say, my sister recanted her statements, even after they were so gory and so disgusting and grotesque and horrifying, right? But there was no proof. The detectives wanted physical proof of this. And it's like, do you not even realize the physical proof is in the way that we're living our lives this day and age? My sister went off and was seeking love from all these different men and now has 9+ kids by all these different dads. Like, there is psychological proof that all this happened. You don't need physical proof. Like, you really don't. If I'm saying it, it should be relevant to you. If I was telling you back then, you should have listened. But you didn't. Instead, you made it worse for me by telling me, no, forgive your family, go back with them. If you're religious, do this and that. And I'm thinking, hold on, didn't you swear an oath under God as well when you got into that field of being a detective, being an officer, being a judge, being all this and that? So nobody ever actually got me the justice that I deserved growing up by placing my father behind bars. So he walks around free to this day in Wisconsin. That's why I call them out on their bullshit, because I'm like, I'm done. I'm completely done. I'm telling the truth. I'm not part of that sphere of this dumb, incestuous thoughts and all this and that where you're just filthy animals inbreeding and whatever. I'm not part of that. I stem from that, yes. But I'm not one to, I don't know what happened with my brain chemistry, if it was all the times I went in and out of consciousness through death. But I've had numerous suicide attempts since my first one, and also too when I was a child, where I nearly passed and came back. So I've had an open-mindedness about things since I was, my entire life. That's why I was always so forgiving. That's why everyone thought, she's lying about it because look at her, she's still hanging out with her family. No, because the words of God tell me that I have to love. That's where it's at with me, because the universe tells me that I was created to form love, and that's what it is. And my name, Leticia, translates to joy. So I try to explain that to people. I didn't even know that these strange synchronicities that were meant for strictly me made me into the type of person that I am today, and how blessed and fortunate I am to have had those hardships as well, so that I could appreciate the good times and appreciate the times where I'm being spoiled, or the times where I'm getting privileges that others do not have. I understand how blessed I am. And I go around, I'm very giddy, and sometimes I'll rub it in people's face, like, oh, look at me, I'm special for a moment. But I know better. I'm not one to, if I see somebody's very sad about my my successes, or my awards, my privileges in that way, I try to offer back. I've got plenty of food, so why not share some of it? I get people to buy me dinners all the time because I'm much cuter than most homeless people, and that's where it lies, where I'm like, well, it's not about the aesthetics. Not everyone was given the privileges I was given. No, not everyone went to private schools to where they were able to understand what was going on in the world around them, or to even be able to, some people are illiterate. Some people don't know how to read. And I didn't know that. When I was growing up, I had presumed that we were in this fanciful world of, people are going to do right by others, and that this is how it goes. That's what they taught us in Catholic school, that the world is going to be a hard place, and I knew from home life. And I was like, well, then the world can't be that bad, because, look at the molestation and everything that's going on at home. I don't want, crazy, right? So by the time I went to college here and there and was educating myself and whatever, I met my ex-husband, and he was a bum, and he moved in with me. and we accidentally got pregnant. I'd been on birth control since I was approximately 11 or 12 years old. I started my menses when I was 9. And when my mother placed me on the birth control, she told me that it was for my acne and that I just needed to take the pill every day. And I saw an ad later on when I was about 15 or so, years after I was already on it, and I saw that it was birth control. And I was like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not having sex with anyone. But it was because my mother wanted to protect me from what had happened to my sister. And my mother only heard about what had happened. She didn't actually like partake in it. But my sister had told me that when she was 14 or 15 that she had to get an abortion, and it was our dad's baby, you know? And I was horrified. And she even said that in her story that he dropped her off 2 blocks away to walk the rest of the way and only gave her half of the amount of money. So I always like placed my sister as a big part in my heart because like I knew she suffered way more than me. You know, I knew that she was going through a lot more psychologically than me, and physically and sexually. So I always had a soft spot for my sister, and I still do to this very day, because I know that the trauma that women sustain, it is lifelong. And people don't realize that these people suffer from post-traumatic stress, or even complex post-traumatic stress that stems from sexual abuse. So I tried to share my story to help others to understand it's okay to classify yourself as disabled through this, because we are disabled. There's nothing that you can say or do that can regain our childhood, that can regain those traumas that we had, destroying our bodies physically. So, and then in turn destroying our mind, our psyche, because it happened and there was nothing we could do to change it or stop it. There are a lot of people out there that say, yeah, I pushed through it, I ignored it and blah, 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 and I managed to succeed. But they all had to go through therapy as well. They all had to deal with facing these issues that happened. These things happened, and that's where I'm still in the progress of doing that, of rationalizing my life and progressing and trying very hard to maintain and to succeed beyond a certain point. Well, so then, I moved down to Arkansas, met my ex-husband. That's where he started living with me at the time. I had my own mobile home that I was renting to own, that I placed a lot of, a down payment on, and that I ended up living at for a little while. So I thought he was 2 years younger than me. I was 23, he was 21. He was stalking me, and I didn't know that that's what that was. I thought it was just like him being like a gentleman or like but no, he was a stalker, and I needed to see it as that. I romanticized it because we had a child together, and I understand that's what my mother did with the circumstances with my dad as well, and that's what women do. They are in denial for so long that it was unhealthy, the relationships or the interactions or the communication. So that's why the father of this child even, it was hard for me to engage with him because he was such a dick. Like, I knew immediately I didn't want anything to do with him because of the way he had tossed down the $50 on the table, and the way that he was responding to me, or lack thereof, and on his phone constantly, and, toxic behaviors that I didn't want to associate with. So even like Thomas as well, when I went over to his house and he gaslighted me and told me like we were going to hang out, play video games, or, play games, board games and things. And I was into it. I was like, okay, cool. Like, that's awesome. And then when it got to the point where he had gotten super hyper drunk and had a bunch of whiskey and everything too, or whatever he had, I was scared, very scared, because I grew up around alcoholics. My father was not really an alcoholic. He was a very lightweight. He was just a pussy in all aspects. He had eaten weed one time, a weed brownie, and he thought he was dying. And then also too, whenever he would drink, he would only have what is that called, that term where they just like hold on to their beer and they're sipping it for hours. That's the type of person my dad was. And then he would fake the drunkenness so that he could get away with whatever toxicity he had for us, in store for us, or whatever. So babysit that beer or whatever, I guess is what it So I had a lot of issues, and I knew it. And when I got with my ex-husband, I disclosed all these issues to him. I wasn't in therapy at that time. Like I said, I was in my early 20s. And I had just gotten over another relationship that traumatized me when I first moved down to Arkansas. His name was Parker Green Snyder. And apparently his family owned half of Benton, and I didn't know it. I was just very naive, and at the time I needed someone to get me away from my brother, because my mother coerced me to move down to Arkansas. I was approximately 19 years old at that time, 19 or 20 years old. And by the time I'd gotten out of an abusive relationship up in Wisconsin, his name was Gerardo Beltran, and he would pick me up and throw me across the room, and we would have our hardships and everything, but he was very physically violent, and I actually have a scar on my thigh from where he threw a screwdriver and it landed in my leg and it was just protruding. And that's the type of violence was going on, and he was Hispanic, so I didn't want to go down that route that my mother had gone down. And I thought, and I had met him off of MySpace. So he was older than me. He was old enough to drink, and I wasn't old enough to drink, but he had me drink a few times and everything like that. And I'm a very sensitive person. So we ended up in a relationship because most of the time whenever I would fornicate with someone, I would want to be in a relationship with them. And I didn't have an issue. I was a very cute young girl. I was very thick. I was, adorable in some senses. I didn't look like I had psychological issues. I looked just fine. And that's the issue. Whereas like you can't judge a book by its cover. And even now, the fact that I look all frumpy and disgusting, don't judge a book by its cover, because I have one of the most beautiful souls I've come in contact with. Honestly, there's a lot of people that even tell me that, and I understand, so I'm not trying to take credit or I'm trying to stay humble in that way, but I know myself. I know that I would be giving. I know that I try. I know that I would give my life for someone else, and I have in the past in that way. So when I was moving down here, my mother told me, she said, well, come and stay with me. And I say down here, but I'm not in Arkansas right now. So I don't know why I said that. So, but you know what I mean? Like, it's, okay. When I moved down to Arkansas, I stayed with my brothers. I had two brothers, right? The younger one that I love very much, and we never had any issues between me, what in my opinion anyway. And then my older brother that was a year older, and then when he molested me numerous times growing up. I was never free from his stalking eyes. So, and him digging in my panty drawers and everything. So that's what had happened. I moved down and I started staying at his house, and I was in the master bedroom that had its own bath, and I locked the door to the bedroom, and all of a sudden when I got out of the shower, he was standing there, my older brother, standing over my panty drawer, digging through it, like sniffing my panties and stuff. So I was horrified. I was like, damn, like, even, we were 20, he was, probably 21, 22 at that time, still doing this traumatic abuse toward me. So one of his friends would come over, Parker Green Snyder, and they would smoke and everything like that, and I sort of like flirted with him, as he seemed handsome enough to me. Seemed like we were having a good rapport, and I left my family's home and went to him because he was like, well, you're safe here, because I told him the truth about it. So then he was like making it out to be like we were going to have a relationship and everything. I was still going through my mental stuff because they were forcing me to go to work at jobs. So I was working at Dillard's in Hot Springs. I was working at Petco, all these different things. I was working and still trying to figure out what the hell was going on in my head. Why was I still having issues? Why was I having issues in relationships? Why was I having issues with my family and this and that? Like, I thought when you forgive them that it's just supposed to heal itself. And it was like, it's not healing itself because nobody is admitting to what they had done wrong. So that's why I was like, okay, repentance is extremely important in all of this. The acceptance in that way of the flaws, of the issues, of the problems. So I had to face my fears in that way. face the fears, the facts that my family was toxic, face that I was toxic from stemming from these people. So we had some, issues, me and Parker, and then I was pregnant. I got pregnant the first time, and I didn't know what to do. I was scared. I was on birth control the whole time. I started drinking a little bit because I turned 21 at that time. So I drank a little bit. So I do believe that might have helped why we conceived. And he swore up and down that we were going to be together in the end. He swore that we were going to have more children and that it just wasn't the right time. And I was like very sad, scared, coming from a very toxic family, no one to turn to, very religious in that way, didn't know what to say or do. He promised me that it was going to be okay, we just couldn't support it right now. And I was like, well, I don't want to kill it. Like, that's not who I am. Like, it really hurt me to come to that conclusion. So many tears. I mean, I'm sure that it was very hard for the doctors and everything to deal with me because I was so hysterical and just so sad. And it was so traumatic, all of it. So when he promised, he's like, well, we'll get an abortion, and then and I didn't know that it was illegal to persuade a woman into getting an abortion. So that's actually what he had done, and that was illegal. And I read that paperwork years after when I had this, when I just went to the abortion clinic, let's see, the 1st of March, I believe, was my appointment. And I showed up there and I read the pamphlets and everything. I read the things on the wall, the signage. And I didn't know that at that time I was being forced into it. So I lost the baby through an abortion. And I thought, God's never going to forgive me. God's, I'm fucked. My soul's fucked. And, it stems from that and, killing the baby. And, I felt terrible. No one knew that I felt terrible. I kept it all inside. I was always smiles to everyone else because I knew how to fake my way through life, because that's how I did it through school. And, all the trauma I was sustaining at home. I knew how to fake it. And okay, yeah, all smiles, Leticia, okay, hi, and there I am snapping behind these eyes. No one really saw it. They just saw some big, watery, beautiful eyes, and they just didn't delve into them, know where that was coming from. Why are your eyes so beautiful? Why, It's because I've seen so much pain and suffering. It's because I've seen so many hardships and I've endured them myself. Or I've seen people that I care about very deeply go through it. So when we had that abortion later on, we got pregnant another time. We were still messing around with each other. We were still dating and whatever. And then all of a sudden I got pregnant again. And when I went to, and Parker was there for the abortion to give me a ride and everything like that. And I did it awake because I didn't know he was rich. I didn't know his family was rich. So when he told me that he would pay for it and everything, I was like, well, I don't want to make it harder on him. I'll just do it awake. Left me fucking scarred for the rest of my fucking life. If I can't sue a man for that shit, I swear to God, that was illegal apparently. I'm like, what? Years afterward? And I'm just waking up to these facts because nobody tells us up front. Nobody's there to walk us through it. I didn't have a good family. I didn't have this and that to protect me, or an aunt or uncle or grandfather or anything like that. No, I did this all on my own, going through all my instabilities, just being molested by my brother and blah, 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 and all this and that. No, you got to give a girl some credit for even realizing later that that's what had happened. And everyone was like, you lie. No, I don't. I had to go through that realization as well that I was fucked with really hardcore. So, we got pregnant again, but when I went to go get the checkup and everything at 8 weeks, and I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, God blessed me with a new baby. It's his baby, so it's, and I was still on birth control. Not even lying about that. I was always on birth control. I might have skipped some here and there because of my stress, but I wasn't trying to have his baby again. So I think it actually was conceived in the back seat of my Blazer, the one that flipped over. So when the baby didn't have a heartbeat, they had to do a dichotomy and something or other where they have to remove it surgically. So I went through that. And then later on, I got with my ex-husband. There was a couple relationships in between that where I was trying to find some comfort within whatever boyfriends I had. Nothing weird. Sure, I was a little bit aggressive with this man named Charles, but, you know, we had some altercations here and there. And I thought, you know, maybe I was being too brash with them. Maybe I was just being too abrasive with all these people. Maybe it was me. No. So my ex-husband used me, and he moved in with me, and he had no place to go. He had no job. He had no nothing. I helped him go just through school. He went through trade school and ended up, you know, going to welding, and he makes a bunch of money through his welding now because I helped support him financially. I helped sustain him in my home. I helped, you know, feed him and afford for him. And then he went off and got that. And when we ended up accidentally getting pregnant, because I was switching birth control brands, we were still sleeping with one another. At that time, I had to go for a scope in Hope, Arkansas. I know how weirdly, like, ironic in that way, or some stuff. You know, I was still suffering from the years prior from the abortion. My ex-husband knew that. You know, Brandon knew that. So, like, he just completely used me and played on my emotions to get me to keep him for a while and all that. And then we accidentally got pregnant. And I was so sad and scared. And what happened was when I went to Hope, Arkansas, and they did the scope, they had to scrape part of my cervix and opened it up. And that's what allowed Tara to be conceived. Because only weeks after is actually like the conception of that or whatever. So, my daughter is a blessing to me. I know that I went through the hardships of having lost her and everything, but she was still an extreme blessing because she was my rainbow baby. And I knew that. And I was scared. I knew when she was a girl, when they gave me the ultrasound to tell me it was a girl, I was horrified. I started crying sad tears. I did not want her to go through the pain and suffering I had sustained as a female. So, but everyone turned it around to say that, and they utilized my words, and they used them, manipulated them, and tried to make it out to be like, oh, she told me she never wanted her kid. She told me this and this and this. Well, what did my actions show you? I breastfed her for 13 months. I taught her baby sign language. I fed her an organic diet. I know that I was a wonderful mother. So everyone else's jealousies got to them, and they wanted to rip her away. So what had happened with all of that, my ex-husband, that was one of the most traumatic things I've ever gone through. We were together for approximately 5.5 years total. I include the dating time, and then 9 months after we had Tara, we got married. Shortly thereafter, and I was already getting heavy set, so I knew he wasn't that attracted to me anymore. I knew that he was watchful of other women. And I tried to tell him that, and he made me out to be the crazy one. You know how they do. You know, they're like, oh, no, it's all in your head. No, it wasn't. He was cheating on me way longer before, and my mother even was saying, like, no, he's a good guy. That's when I knew that I was in denial as well. Because my mother is in constant states of denial, where she will not, because I don't know if it's the medication, if it's the alcohol, but she has a chemical imbalance. Yet nobody has ever forced these individuals into therapy. Nobody's ever forced these individuals to seek help psychologically, psychiatrically. So back to the story with my ex-husband. His family had physically assaulted me when my daughter was approximately 2.5 years old. This is after I had gotten done breastfeeding and everything. I went and got all 4 of my wisdom teeth removed one day, and I was messed up on a bunch of hydrocodone. So I opened up to his grandmother because they showed up. They were trying to see if they could help with the baby. I didn't like their help. I didn't want their help. I did barely ask for my ex-husband's help, Brandon's help, because I didn't trust him, and I didn't trust his family because they were very ignorant people, and they stem from doing a lot of toxic things like drinking and smoking, chain smoking cigarettes. My ex-husband stopped smoking around me for a while, but then went directly back to it because that is his mentality. He's very sick mentally, and nobody wants to admit it because he was making money. And I was like, wait a minute, no, that's complete signs of mental illness right there. And you're going to offer this child to him? Like, you need to retract some things, because I don't even remember signing those papers for the divorce. So what had happened was his family physically assaulted me on their property because I went to go drop off the belongings that belonged to them, because they made a huge ordeal out of me telling the grandmother. I felt like they didn't love me enough because of the fact that they didn't give me any Mother's Day cards or anything like that. But when Father's Day would come around, they would give my ex-husband gifts. So I thought that was really messed up. Like, it was a clear sign that they just didn't care about me. They cared about the grandson, and they cared about just their grandchild, but not me. So that hurt very badly. And they made sure to pound that in, following that verbal, I wouldn't even call it an altercation. It was just me communicating openly and honestly. She started crying, and I was like, I'm sorry. Like, are you just like my mother? You can't handle the truth? Like, I'm sorry. What? And that's how it is. These people are so mentally ill, they can't handle the truth. That's why they burst into tears. That's why they cause all these problems for everyone else, because they couldn't manage. So they take their money and they put it into the court systems to, oh, you said some crazy stuff. I'm going to sue you. Okay, but it doesn't mean that it's any less true. All these things. So do whatever you need to. If that's what you need to do, is leave me with a criminal record, good for you. You're going to hell. And they were preaching about God all the time, Southern Baptist. We were hanging out, me and the grandparents. We would go to church together. I would take the baby to church. All these things. They were trying to tell me I wasn't Christian because I was Catholic. And that, we all know is wrong, clearly wrong. But, they're very mentally behind. They're very slow. They were raised in Arkansas, and my ex-husband was as well. When we even went to go get him his trade, certification in welding and everything, he told me, and this complete lie, he told me, oh no, I thought I graduated. When I went and contacted them to get my diploma just now so that I could transfer it over, they told me I was still like half a credit shy from graduating. So I never got my diploma. I was like, what? Like, all these lies, and I didn't see it. I didn't see how toxic he was. I didn't know. Like, he had just manipulated me into a state of submission to where I had presumed that I needed him and I needed his, comfort. I needed his protection. I needed this and that. He was just manipulating me the whole time and using me. And when he got his daughter out of it, then he was able to get all the taxes out of it, and he knew that that was just a money-making, scheme in that way. So that's why he went off and had whatever family afterward. Okay, let's get back to it. So his family physically assaulted me. And now I can say these things without crying. Years ago, when all these things first happened, I was hysterical when I would share it with people, and they thought I was lying. They thought I was just making it up. And I'm like, no, those were my emotions reaching out, the honest, genuine, true emotions, and you ignored them. You completely ignored them. You didn't do your jobs. You didn't look into the victims, the victim's well-being. No, you didn't. You completely. So what happened too with that altercation, the physical altercation that day when I got my wisdom teeth taken out? I'm jacked up on hydrocodone. I never take that kind of stuff. I'm not on drugs. I was for a while because I had bad sciatica after my daughter was born and everything. So I knew that I had a slight addiction, but then it stopped. So I wasn't ever really on pills. So I was fucked up, and I was telling him everything that I thought, and that was the wrong thing to do. Actually, it was the right thing to do, because that kept these people away from me. But it allowed them to be around my daughter, and I was horrified. I was like, what is the system not noticing about this entire situation? That these people didn't seek any therapy or psychiatric or psychological help. They're obviously not the victims. I obviously didn't act out. So when I went over to go drop off their belongings and pick up my daughter's belongings, and I told them, I said, well, if that's how you feel, if you're going to cause a rift between us because I can't open up honestly and discuss things, and we don't need to be a part of each other's lives right now. They freaked out. They started, this and that, called the mother of my ex-husband called the father of my ex-husband, and they wanted their belongings back. Their van that I was using after my ex-husband had flipped our vehicle, so he actually owed me a fucking vehicle in that way. But I was having to use this broken down van to get my daughter from here and there to go to different doctor's appointments and everything, and go to the grocery store, you know, regular chores and errands. And so yeah, they wanted that back, and I was like, okay, fine, that's completely fine. I don't need your help. Like, we'll figure out something else. At the time, I wasn't talking to my family either, because I knew to stay away from how toxic they were. My brother had just gotten out of prison, so my mother had like taken everything that he would say and just completely follow his every word, like kind of like when that cat goes after that skunk in that one cartoon. What's his name? Pepe Le Pew. Or the skunk goes after the cat, you know? That's what it is, Pepe Le Pew. That's kind of how it was, where my mother lingers on every facet of my brother and her sons, but doesn't care about her daughters. And she's never come to that realization at all. So when I ended up getting assaulted that day, because we were just there, I was picking up those things. His female cousin, Brandy, came up to me and she started saying, I heard you been talking shit about Glenda. And I was like, Brandy, you weren't there. Like, you know, you need to step out of this. This has nothing to do with you. And she said, well, it has everything to do with me. If she's crying and blah, 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 and this and this and this. And I said, okay, back up. Like, I'm not going to talk to you. So then she goes on and on. She was saying some stuff. And I said, look, just because you're a bad mom, or I said, just because I'm a great mom. Wait a minute. I said something about her being a shitty mom. And it was because her daughter, when I was pregnant, laid her head on my belly and told me, I wish you were my mommy. Like, she was 5 years old doing this to me in my ex-husband's grandparents' home. And everyone saw it, even her mom. And I was like, oh shit, like, because kids know that I'm extremely safe and loving and kind and will listen to them. And I'm not there to push or persuade them into doing things they don't want to do. I mean, if that's really not what you want to do, then okay. So I'm always very lenient with people, giving them the benefit of the doubt. Now, if it's something that's dangerous, I keep the children away from that. I know better. I volunteered at a kindergarten when I was in high school. I know. Like, I'm not a crazy monster that everyone makes me out to be. And I worked at veterinary hospitals. I worked at pet stores. That's the type of person you're dealing with, not a monster. So everyone else made it out to be like I was clearly the issue. Oh, clearly she's got all the documentation. She's got all this and that. So Brandy hauled off after I told her she was a bad mom, and she punched me in the face. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I don't get into physical fights. No, thank you. Like, this is not. So I'm trying to rip her off of me after she's still, you know, trying to beat the shit out of me. And I'm ripping her hair off because, you know, she's got that long, fake, blonde, nasty hair, you know, straight and everything. And I'm trying to rip it off. Like, get away from me. You're crazy. Like, all that straight blonde, that's obviously, you're stupid and crazy. But she was a part of twins. So she must not have gotten the right amount of nutrients, because everyone said that she was the slower of the two twins. And she also has missing teeth where she was born without them. So obviously there's something wrong with her genetics. And I didn't mean to be rude, but I was just telling her, back the fuck up. And then she started wailing on me. And the scuffle got outside. And by the time I got that bitch off of me, I told everyone, and my ex-husband was there. He was holding our child, holding our 2-year-old, and just watching his family beat the shit out of me. Never stepped in to stop her. Never stepped in to stop any one of these individuals. That's how much of a fucking trophy he was, you know? So, I'm being facetious, of course. So, by the time it got outside and she got off of me, the grandmother came outside with a couple of sippy cups. And I was like, just trying to grab the sippy cups. And I grabbed the top of the sippy cups, and she grabbed the bottom and she wouldn't let go. So there we were, tussling over these sippy cups, and I thought, this is not worth my time. This is not worth my energy. So I let go. I said, if you want them, take them. I was like, I'm done. So my hands went up like this because I backed up. Everyone said I fucking pushed that old granny bitch, and I didn't. All right, and I'm angry, and that's why I use these terms, because everyone believed that I pushed that granny. And I'm like, what? I would never be that fucking callous. Bitch needed to stay away from me, but I wasn't even, after getting my ass whooped, I still wasn't to that heightened state where I was going to beat the shit out of grandma, you know? Like, what the fuck? She's a scrawny ass old lady with issues with her own muscle and whatever problems. She trips, stumbles on back, falls flat on her ass on her steps because she stumbled and tripped over her own fucking feet. And everyone said I fucking pushed her. So I was like, what the fuck? No, like, that's not what happened. So the grandfather started attacking me, and he almost punched me in the face. He was like that far shy of punching my nose at one point, because he was so, raggedy, and he takes a bunch of pills, and he just sits around all the time, and, granny all talking about the Bible, yet she even told the cops that she was pushed. That's how she said it. Bitch, my hands never fucking touched you. God knows my hands never fucking touched you in that instance. So, and I even called her years afterward to apologize to her about the entire scenario. Like, I didn't push you, right? And she was like, yeah, I know. And then my ex-husband told his grandparents, you can't talk to her anymore, because then if they disclosed that they lied during that instance and they should have gone to jail, then it would backfire their whole story. Like, it would fuck up my ex-husband's story of his victim, whatever he was trying to portray as the victim. So, I'll get to that in a moment too. I mean, I'm already on an hour, and that's too much for me. I'm already done. Like, I'm stressed the fuck out. I don't need to relay these things constantly. I don't know why people ask. It really, honestly, just find the videos and watch them if you're that interested. Quit trying to harass me and ask me every goddamn day what the fuck happened, because I relive it in my mind every day anyway, due to my PTSD. So, the family, the grandmother of my daughter, her name's Loretta. She comes over from across the street. They lived right next to each other, the grandparents and the great-grandparents of my daughter. So, the grandparent, Loretta comes over with another cousin. It was another cousin, a female cousin. And there was a scuffle. Crazy Brandy was still, trying to beat the shit out of me then, because everyone said I pushed Granny. And I was like, bitch, no, I didn't. Like, get the fuck away from me. Your grandma means shit to me. So when the Loretta came over, and I didn't say those words to him. I was scared. I was shocked. I was frightened, My clothes were being ripped off of me. My hair was pulled out, all this stuff, right? I had scrapes and cuts all over me, but they had none on them. And Loretta actually beat the shit out of me. She came over, and she said, what's going on over here? And I said, look, it's none of your business. I said, thank you for trying to whatever. I said, but it's none of your business. You're a shitty mom too. Because my ex-husband used to tell me that she used to throw steak knives at him from across the room, or like kitchen knives, dangerous. Yeah. So she's crazy. She was a chain smoker. She ended up getting a heart, a pacemaker after all this, because she deserved it. That's how it is. She's a crazy person. And the cousin started beating the shit out of me too. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, all these females, there was 3 females, and then the grandfather tried to. So 4 of the family members beat the shit out of me. My ex-husband was still standing there holding the baby. Didn't do shit. Didn't lift a finger to stop it. Just watched. And then he made it out to be like he was the victim in all of it. I got in the fucking car, and we were sitting in the truck, in my ex-husband's truck, because I didn't get a vehicle for me and my child. No. I said, we'll get you a vehicle first because you go to work and you take care of us. So he got like a $7,000, $8,000 Toyota Tacoma at that time. And it was nice and new, like a one owner type thing. So he got a nice fancy vehicle while I was bumming around in trash. But that goes to show, too, how much he appreciated me. And I told him, I said, one day our daughter's going to know how much of a piece of shit you truly are. Because even the fact that he promised me that the ring I had at that time was real. And it was burning my skin. Well, I'm allergic to sterling silver. By the time I found out that it was sterling silver, it was after the divorce when I had no money for one of my bills. And I went to go to try to pawn it because it had a tiny little diamond in it. Tiny. And I was so proud of it. So proud. Didn't care. It was, I was so happy. And then when I went to go pawn it, they told me, we can only give you $10. This ring's not real. So I kept the ring so that I could keep the diamond for my daughter and put it in a necklace one day so she would have it. But my sentimentality looks crazy to people. Instead, they took the words of these monsters that actually abused and assaulted me. And okay, so back to the story. I got my ass whooped. We go down the road, and I called the police at the park. The police showed up. There was like 4 different officers, 4 different, like 3 or 4 vehicles. They were like, oh, domestic violence, yeah, let's go for it. They ended up talking to me. I was heightened. I was all scraped up. I had bruising. I had scrapes. My clothes were ripped off. My bra was destroyed. It was ripped. I was overweight. They didn't listen to me because I was overweight and frumpy because I looked like I was crazy at that moment. And I was on hydrocodones from the dentist and everything. So they made it out to be like I was the one that caused the problem. But I wasn't. I did not physically get violent whatsoever. And that's why I was calling them so that they could file reports on it and they could put these people in jail because that's not right. So what did they do? They went back and they talked to the family. But of course, they all stuck to their own and they made up their story. And they said, oh, no, she was attacking us. They took me to jail and not the family members. By the time it got to court, we had photo evidence of all the bruising and marks all over me. They had no evidence whatsoever that I fought them back. So it was dropped. I was acquitted of it. And yet it's still on my record for assault on 2 family members. And I told them, clearly there's something wrong with your judicial system. You have not placed efforts into justifying, rectifying these situations. And then that also compiled to me losing my child because they took all this evidence and they placed it in front of the courts as if I was the one that was physically violent. And they would take things out of context, the things that I would say, the aggression. They would, my ex-husband was filming me without even my knowledge and also recording me without my knowledge. And in my heightened states of verbal aggression, he got that on and was able to share that with the courts so that he could get his restraining orders. So my ex-husband promised me in the divorce, and I don't remember signing those papers, mind you. My mother came back into my life at that time, and my mother can fake my signature. So there was no notary. There was no notary involved. There was no proof that I signed those divorce decree. And then I didn't show up at the divorce hearing either because they told me I didn't have to. My ex-husband was coercing me. He got me videos that Christmas. He promised we were going to be together in the end. I believed him and I said, yeah, sure. Like, I love you very much. Like, you'd never hurt me, right? And of course, my mother said the same thing. Brandon would never hurt you. He promised me I would still have access to Tara too. And she doesn't. So the fact of it is that he is a manipulative monster. And what he did was he left me for dead. He signed me up for disability prior to divorcing me to make sure that, he felt like I was taken care of enough. No, he didn't. I should have gotten alimony for that, for all the pain and suffering. So he ended up going and getting the most expensive attorney in town, TAP, and used them in the divorce. And they screwed me over without me even being there. And when I went to go ask to see my child, people would say, no, this paperwork says you don't have custody no more. This paperwork says you don't even have visitation rights. That's exactly what they did. I don't even have the right to visitation. The only things that I have a right to, and I went back and reread those documents years afterwards, after getting off the psych meds and everything, the only thing I'm privy to are her doctor's records and school records, educational records. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't even have visitation for me? What's going on? Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm just now waking up from all this trauma and abuse, getting out of my shell and everything, and you're going to tell me this crazy nonsense? That this child doesn't belong to me? I'm pretty sure God placed her in my life for a reason, and I birthed her. I'm pretty sure my body went through all of that, not everyone else's. And I was the one placing efforts into her health and well-being, whereas other people weren't. My ex-husband wasn't even taking her to her speech therapy classes, but I did. So don't tell me that he was better off just because he was able to financially support. No, if it would have gone down the proper way and I would have fought, which I don't really necessarily believe in the court system and fighting in that way because I'm a spiritual person. And I figured everybody will figure it out. You know, somebody will figure it out. They'll fix this situation and Tara will come back to me like she rightfully should. And the fact of it is none of it was happening. So I started making these videos after the rape, after Jason Wallace had his way with me in the middle of the night, and I turned around, and yes, I was consenting of the next time, which clearly is not a relationship. We met each other one time, and he ran off. So there's no sign that he made any attempts to appease me or to help the situation. Well, in the fact that he didn't get the plan B, that's a clear sign, like there's something wrong. So anyway, all this stress that I've lived through, all these things that I've lived through, my ex-husband got away with murder. He literally did, because when I tried to reach out and explain to people 3 years after the divorce, I made a video and I posted it on YouTube, and it was me holding 2 loaded guns. Maybe it might have just been the one, but there were 2. My ex-husband left me with 2 loaded guns that were registered to his grandfather. And one of the loaded guns I sold for a sack of weed. And I ended up still having the clip at my house. So the clip was still in the drawer. I didn't even know, because I didn't know shit about guns really. So my ex-husband left me with 2 loaded guns, knowing that I had had prior suicide attempts in the past. So he planned everything very well. And he manipulated me. That's why I said this is like a Lifetime movie, man. Like, this is crazy. I'm gonna write about this. This is insane. Like, I can't believe that I actually have these proofs. And it happened to me. Because I should be getting paid a shit ton of money because my story's insane. Like, awesome in that way that I'm still alive. So this guy left me for dead. He got me on disability and then left me with 2 loaded guns. And then when I spoke out about it, after he got the first restraining order and everything, he promised me we would be together. He just didn't believe in the constructs of marriage, the paperwork behind it, but we would still be together. 2 years after he got divorced from me, he married someone else. So that was a clear lie. He'll get his karma for all that. And so then, what was I saying too? When he left the loaded guns and I made those videos, he reached out to the police to tell them that I was threatening his life. Because in the video I stated, why would you leave these loaded guns with me if not for me to kill myself or for me to kill you? Is that what you wanted? So they took that as harassing his communications. So 3 years ago, I harassed my ex-husband's communications to try to see my kid again. I know it was a violent thing to do, to disclose it, but it's kind of like shoving your own shit back in your face. It happens. You clearly understand something's wrong here. Why is it that I'm the one kept away from my child and she's being raised by another woman? What? No. No. I breastfed that child. I took care of that child. God told me to speak up, so I started making these loving letters. I started sending gifts. I already was sending gifts and cards and everything to my daughter. But I started trying to reach out to Brandon. He would not respond. He knows that if he starts to speak to me, he's going to incriminate himself and disclose that he actually planned all of that, the murder and everything like that. So that's why he doesn't speak to me. And it's not because he's the victim and that's rightfully that. No. It's because he's afraid of disclosing any information that might lead him to being, incarcerated for all the things that happened. Him allowing all the abuse, him abusing me, the marital abuse that I sustained during the time we were together. So that's why everyone, keeps to themselves, and it doesn't matter how many people speak about it. It's not the truth. It's like, what is that saying where, just because something wrong is accepted by so many people doesn't make it right. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, something like that, some type of saying. So, when I ended up, this is so rough too, I'm going to have a rough morning just from having to disclose all of this stuff. When I went to jail for those 2 months for harassing his communications 3 years ago, I never thought I'd go to jail. Like, never. I had been in and out of jail due to, like, the overnight stay from, or that evening I went to jail for the assault on 2 family members and stuff like that. But I never actually had to, like, be in jail for very long. Even one time when I had gotten arrested for disorderly conduct, when I was banging on the door of Parker Green Snyder's apartment, he kicked me out while I was pregnant and I had nowhere to go. I was very scared. The officers shoved me down to the ground because they listened to Parker instead of me, because Parker had served at one point in the military. So I knew that there was some nepotism and there's some bias with all this and the masculinity and, misogynist mindset. So at that time, I got a disorderly conduct when I was pregnant the first time, because I was trying to get back into the apartment because he locked me out because he was just, freaked out. Didn't want anything to do with me. He was busy in his own head. He was crazy. So, and then he ran away to Europe, and they just allowed him to run away to Europe after he snapped my dog's back too. Like, what? That's crazy. That's insane. So, when, let me see. Where was I in my story? About, Parker, I can't remember what I was saying. Oh, so I went to jail for like an overnight stay there or whatever. And then my mom got me out, and my stepdad at that time, Dewey. And I knew Dewey was a felon, but I never really saw him kind of like that. He was always a very gentle father figure for me. So I actually enjoyed his company because he was never perverse, and he understood from the perspective that it was my mother's fault for allowing it to happen, a lot of it. So, like, he was always very lenient with me, always joking around with me, understood that I was just a very sort of sweet, naive, sort of innocent type of girl, and wasn't out there seeking a bunch of nonsense, wasn't getting drunk, wasn't doing drugs or any of that. Smoking weed is not drugs, like, I knew I needed that to calm the fuck down during all of this. And even now, I only puffed like once or so. I'm going to need to puff, but there's too many people around. I was going to go in the facility, but now I'm probably going to drive away because I'm so upset from all of this. Like, so upset from all of this relaying of the toxicity. My true life story. So, when I ended up going to jail for those 2 months, and I went to a psychiatric hospital in between that time 3 years ago, my mother got involved. I was in jail for approximately 10 days or so. They contacted my mother because they left my dogs confined in the house with no electric because I shut off the electric and they showed up on my property. That's how they arrested me. I shut the entire power off of my house so that I could give them a sign. And then all of a sudden, officers showed up at my house to arrest me. So, because they knew I was onto them. And they knew I was not happy with what was going on. Like, and not only that, I didn't know I had a warrant. I didn't. So, when they ended up coming and arresting me and taking me in, no one was there to take care of my dogs. So, there was like 8-9 dogs in the house. and they of course destroyed it and everything. My mother finally got contacted through my landlord or whatever, whomever contacted her or whatever, because there are some people that knew me personally, knew that I was getting fucked with, knew that the system was just continually, raping me in that way. So that's why a lot of people were there to try to help me, because they knew this girl, she's not doing well mentally. She's, being fucked with. Like, these people are taking advantage of her own family, her own ex-husband, everyone, So they contacted my mom, and my mom got, involved and signed over, like, she gave away all my expensive electronics, all of my equipment for my dogs, everything like that, and they allowed me to sign over my dogs while I was in jail on a bunch of psychiatric medication, which shouldn't have been a viable signature. So literally, they adopted out my dogs, my little poodles and stuff, and then they put down my pit bull, my 11-year-old pit bull. They euthanized her because she was a pit bull. And I thought, what? Like, what's going on? I don't understand. I was completely horrified. I was like, God will take care of this. You guys sound crazy. What are you doing? Like, what's going on here? Like, this doesn't make any sense. I was telling you what he had done to me. I showed you the guns. You got those guns back. There were people that came to my home and asked me for the guns, and I gave it to them. So that was it. Like, and nobody had viewed those videos like they are viewing my videos now. There weren't thousands of views. I didn't have thousands of subscribers back then. I didn't have any subscribers. I literally just made my content on a channel that I've had for years, and I decided I'm going to share my story too. This is crazy. Somebody help me, because I'm scared. These authorities aren't helping me, organizations aren't helping me, nobody's helping me with my family in that way, or the toxicity that happened to me. Like, there's no advocates for people like me that were just naive to the facts at that time, and on so many meds and everything that they were being told and gaslighted, all this and that. So I ended up, my mother got involved. She got rid of all my things. She put a storage unit, she got a storage unit for a few of my belongings, nothing that was of value, absolutely none of it. And I lost so many thousands of dollars worth of the belongings that I had acquired over the years. And the poodles, I had gotten so many because of the fact that they made great companion animals. I was starting to breed them, so I even made attempts toward getting a license to breed. And I wanted to just have pets. I wanted to breed pets for people. And I know that sounds bad being vegan now, but poodles, being hypoallergenic, they were so much more beneficial to my clientele, the people that needed them for companions. So I wasn't even making that much money. I wasn't making that much money. In total, like the first poodles I had ever sold, which I didn't know how much they were worth, they were pure-blooded, like essentially pure-blooded, because I couldn't get the lines or paperwork from all of them. It was Cuervo and Canella's babies. I sold them for $100 a piece. That was it. When I first moved down to Arkansas, like 15 years ago. So I wasn't making money. I was just helping the community. I was making happiness and joy and love. And everyone thought I was just crazy. Like, then I started asking for more, like $250 for my poodles or $300 for my poodles, and then it got up to, some of them were like $600 at the very most, were like $500 is what it was. I always wanted to make them affordable because I knew how much love, and I wasn't making enough money to get back to my child, because that's not what God wanted for me. God didn't want me to pay for a child I've already paid in for. That's what I told everyone. I was like, I'm not going to pay a dime for visitation. And so when everything was ripped away from me a few years ago, I realized that's not what God had in store for this story. That's not what God had in store for me and my child, and how we're going to get back together in this way. So I had to just sort of suck it up. My mother was telling me all this stuff over the phone. She said, I don't know when you're going to get out. She was having access to my monthly checks. And then all of a sudden she told me, I didn't save any of your money. It all went to your debts. I was like, what debts? What are you talking about? I had a water bill and an electric bill. What debts? I didn't destroy the house aside from the dogs shitting and pissing everywhere because they were confined. It was rented, yeah, but I didn't owe them anything for it. Like, I was confused. My mother had stolen my money. She got power of attorney because I signed over the rights in jail. No one was there to advocate for me. There was nobody personally there to advocate. So I just did what I had to. They put papers and I signed them. That's how it normally goes. If that's how you want to play it, if that's how you want to mess with my life, sure, go. Let's go for it. So, and I detach because I'm like, I'm in a heightened state of stress. I'm in a heightened state of unaware, was it like unawareness or whatever, like just no, I wouldn't say unconscious, but sort of like not understanding what's really going on. So when I ended up, out of jail, my mother even told me in jail that she didn't trust me to live with her. Okay. And she was making it out to be like she was the victim from me as well. But that she was just opening her heart and home to me because she was doing the godly thing for me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not even the one that's violent like your felon son, and you take every word and you like suck the tip of his dick for every word that comes out of him. Like I swear to God, like my family's disgusting. My mother has made advances toward her own grandson. That's what one of the grandchildren told me. The one that I helped with the child abuse or whatever, the sexual abuse, that my sister hates me for to this day, her oldest son, that I called CPS over because he told me to. And yeah, he even said, Grandma did this, like she put her hand down there and it was really close to my privates. And these are the types of people that the officers were trying to tell me that I needed to go back to. So after being so reclusive and agoraphobic for all those years, I was forced into living with my mom after I got out of jail. I lived with her for a year total. But during that time, the first 6 months, I got down to 200 pounds in jail because I was so depressed and so like scared and everything. I wasn't eating. I was vomiting. I was doing all this stuff because I was very nervous. I didn't know what was going on. Why am I in jail when you clearly have the proof that he was trying to kill me? Like, I put that on video for everyone, the authorities to see. He left me with loaded guns. I didn't run off and find them and threaten people. No, that he threatened me by leaving them there. So, people don't see it that way. Instead, they see it in some crazy, deranged way that's just like, blah, 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 you shouldn't have said anything. No, what? No, what? Finally, I need to say things so that people can start rationalizing what the fuck they did wrong. And why the fuck aren't you helping me? Why? That makes no sense. So, I lived with my mom. During the first 6 months, I gained 50 pounds. Just within that 6 months because I was so depressed of being around here near her, reliving my childhood. My brother, the felon brother, had taken up the role of my abusive father, and he was in and out of the house all the time, blah, 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 on and off drugs. My mother was just over there enabling him and coddling him, but they enabled each other constantly is what it truly is. They've never had help. They need help. And like all the people in my story need to seek psychiatric help because I know what I had done wrong, and I know that it seemed kind of graphic and violent, but that's just how it is. Like, what are you trying to tell me? You literally left me with loaded guns so that I could kill myself. Like, and now I finally speak up about it and I'm put in jail? No. Like, you know what I mean? So that's why I wanted to help people with my story, because women go through this all the time. Tons of people go through this all the time where they don't get their voices heard because they were gaslighted and these manipulators, and they, it's secrets and lies, and everyone, signing off and shaking hands behind your back and say, oh yeah, we'll never disclose the actual truth. We'll make it out to be like this person, like all this kind of corruption. What? That's really weird. So, and I've always just been super honest, too honest for my own damn good. Presuming that people are going to do right by me in the long run, inevitably. I'm hopeful. I'm always hopeful. But does it ever happen? Not so far. You see where I'm at right now. What a cute squirrel. You're so cute. I love you so much. Oh my God, I love you so much. You're so fluffy. I bet you have fleas. I love you. You're so cute. So, I get distracted very easily by cute, fluffy things. And being away from it for so long, like fasting from the things that I love so much, sure, it gives me like a certain amount of appreciation for these things and admiration and gratitude toward everything. And that's why I knew that it was actually really beneficial that I ended up homeless. It was beneficial. So I stayed with my mother for a year. The reason that I left my mother's house was because my brother, my felon brother, who was 31 at that time, was bringing around a 16-year-old. And they were smoking weed. And not only that, they had had a relationship since she was 12. And my mother didn't see the issue with it. So I was sickened. I was disgusted. The more they brought this little girl over, I felt horrified. I was like, and even during the first few months that I was living there, like it was within 6 months after I had started living there, I gained all the weight. No one wanted to believe me for shit. Finally, I ended up switching my diet. I switched and started exercising. I started doing things to benefit myself during the final 6 months that I was there. And anything and everything that they could do to stop me from progressing, they tried. Even with the painting that I created for my daughter, I was always rushed because I knew that at any moment my brother could snap and destroy the artwork that I just created for my baby. Because he's very violent. But they always made it out to be like I was violent because they tried to like call the cops on me when I was a kid as well too, and say that I was acting out physically, and that's not ever true. No one has any proof that I'm a physically violent person or that I act out violently, physically. So it's just from the people that abuse me, that make it out to be like they're a victim. And it's like, what are you talking about? No, I'm not that violent. And I only get to that point when you're abusing me. So, yeah, after all this time, I think people are starting to realize who the true Leticia is. And I'm grateful for it. I'm very blessed that people are finally seeing me as a human being, as an individual, as someone that suffered so much, that didn't mean to say certain things. Yeah, sure, I get heightenedly aggressive, but do I do any of that shit? No, I don't act out. I'm not like that. I'm not like my other family members, and that's where I understood being tied to those people was a negative thing. And it was just going to get me in more trouble. It was just going to get me in more problems because everyone would think that I'm in cahoots with them in some way or another. So, yeah, that was my story for this morning. It's already been an hour and a half, so this is going to take forever to load. And, it's May 25th, 2022, and I just wanted to disclose this is why I'm homeless right now. I left my mom's house because I couldn't be around any of the toxicity anymore. I couldn't watch that little girl. Her teeth got knocked out because my brother was so proud to show her how cruise control worked around a curve in the middle of the city, which, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to use cruise control while you're in city limits and everything. So he flipped the vehicle and she busted her teeth, and she had no teeth. And I honestly thought that these coincidences and the synchronicities that were happening to me, because I was still coming off of all the psych meds from jail and everything, I thought that it was totally God trying to inform me of like their manipulation in that way. Like, I thought at first they were faking everything. I thought it was just stories. But with the more and more I was around my family, the more and more I realized, no, this is our reality. Like, we have fucked up shit happen to us, and then nobody does anything to fix it properly. And that little girl is probably still living at my mom's house. And she even told me all those years, oh no, I get assistance through the housing authority. They can't know that you're living with me. You're the issue. You're the issue. At any moment they could kick me out for you living here. But immediately kicked me out so she could move in my felon brother and his little girlfriend. What? I had no idea I was hated that much by my family, but then I realized, oh yeah, it's because I tell them the truth to their face, and they don't like hearing that. They think that that's abuse. Hearing the truth about their denial, hearing the truth about their this and that, their problems, their issues, they think that that's abuse. That's exactly what even Loretta and Brandon and all that try to tell everyone, that me speaking to them in therapeutic terms was abuse, because they didn't want to deal with their issues. They didn't want to deal with their problems. So that's why I tell everyone I clearly need to be compensated, because all this and that, aside from everything else, and then also too right before the divorce and having that officer force me into giving him fellatio, and then the orderlies in the psych ward during my divorce that, you know, sexually abused me, psychologically and sexually abused me because they wanted me to touch myself in front of them. Yeah, not good. And you allow these people in these authoritative positions, and you allow these people to have reign over people like me. And I'm like, I just need a safe place to go. Like, if I had my bills paid and everything, I could manage, and I could be a benefit to society. I could, you know, be someone that could be there to help others through these things, or to help them with their story. And I've always tried to advocate for people that have gone through sexual abuse, and advocate for this and that, and animal rights and everything. So becoming vegan was just part of that stepping stone. And I was like, man, I feel so clear-headed now. I feel so much better that I don't have all these injected antibiotics and hormones, extra hormones and this and that. I'm very blessed to have come to the realizations that I have. And that's why I share my story, because I share, you know, the lightheartedness behind it of, you know, I do make jokes about all this stuff because I can now, because, like, Jesus, I've gone through enough. But then also, too, knowing that I can share my story freely and help others, say, with their, like, weight problems or any ailments like that, I don't mind. And I don't mind not getting compensated. I don't know what people are all about with monetary gain. I don't get it. Like, everybody needs money to do their jobs. I don't get it. Like, that's why I refrain from getting a job, because if people are going to force me into living that mindset again, then I would rather die. I'd rather kill myself, because it's not fair to us. It's not fair to the people that have already suffered enough psychologically, that can't function and socialize well. That's why I have social anxiety. That's why I have avoidant behavior. You know, all these different attributes about my personality. That's why I sit in my car for hours on end. It didn't bother me. I was like, homeless, okay, sure, I've got this vehicle, it keeps me safe. That's all I need. You know, I've got all my things here and there, and that's good. And, you know, I think a lot of people want to take advantage of that, but a majority of people give me props for just succeeding without having been taken advantage of again. And that's why when Jason Wallace and all of that, I don't understand why they just sort of like let him skedaddle in that way, like let him bound off to go do this to another girl. Like, I'm horrified. Like, why? Who's the father? Which one of you? You know, Thomas or Jason? And why aren't you taking care of this thing? Because I wanted a plan B and you refused. And that's not fair. That's completely, like, I feel like that's illegal. Like, if you're going to have sex and intercourse with someone, and if they're specifying, hey, I haven't been on birth control for 6 years, I don't normally do this. I told him too, I was like, I don't normally have sex like that, especially to ask for someone to ejaculate in me like that. You know what I mean? Like, and I know that's rough. But that's why I disclose the honest truths, because that's my preference and that's how it went down. And it's not my fault that I'm pregnant right now. I was just having fun because he had fun. And so why not? And then there was supposed to be no attachment, yet there is. And I'm like, what is God leading me toward? Because this man is not coming around to his senses. And he's not coming around to the fact that, like, what? You literally just caused me to die. Like, you placed me in harm's way by doing this. And also by placing your penis in me without my consent prior anyway. That was not okay. There was physical contact there that I didn't consent to. I didn't want to get STDs. I didn't want to get this and that. You didn't use a condom. And, like, after that, I was just dead inside. After what Thomas had did 2 days prior, and then Jason went around and did the same fucking sort of shit to me, I was horrified. That's why I tried to comfort myself that following morning by receiving whatever affection I could in my own brain. You know, to use him as how I made it out. But that's not really how it went down. He totally used me. And I'm totally being used still. You know, as I say, human trafficking and this and that. You people are crazy. So anyway, that's part of the story. Hopefully everybody got a good gist of it. You know, this is why I'm homeless right now. This is why I'm suffering. This is why, you know, not necessarily because of my own actions, not necessarily, aside from being gullible, too naive, and too open and willing to please other people. You know, that's why I realized you got to put yourself first now, Leticia. Like, fuck everybody. Go get your vegan snacks. Go get this and that. If you want to spend some gas here, who cares? God will take care of you. You know, God knows that you did not mean wrong by a lot of this stuff, and that you never meant to hurt anybody. And, like, I don't know, and then continually getting hurt myself. I'm like, Jesus, what am I, a martyr? I don't get this. Like, what? I'm not some kind of prophet. Please stop trying to kill me. Or maybe I am, and that's why my life is going this way. And, like, that's cool. Like, either way, I don't care. I'm just sort of, like, chilling. As long as I got a little bit of weed and I've got a little water and food, you know, I'm good. But it's my preference. Like, I want to choose it. Like, but you still pay me. But you still pay me. I don't know. Money. I don't know. I don't get it. I want a home. Can I have a home yet? Can I have some place to stay yet? That's not my vehicle, so I can have some room to do yoga and everything and dance. That's what I would love. I wanted to do that right now this morning, is to dance a little bit, and my gut is just so big. There's so much going on in there. Oh my God, it's horrifying. Anyway, this video is already too long. I'll disclose more of my feelings later, but hopefully people got the gist of why I'm homeless right now, what's going on in its entirety. I love you guys very much, and I hope you're safe, and I hope you're, you know, tending to things in a positive way, and that you're all getting the things that you need in order to survive. And I'll discuss a few more things, personal things later of my day. But I just wanted to disclose that because I know that they're new subscribers, and I didn't even know you guys were real. Like, I really didn't. But then when I started seeing some revenue, I was like, well, maybe this is real. Maybe these aren't people. Maybe they are real. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I get caught in between spaces because it's like, I don't even know who to believe anymore. I don't know who to trust. I couldn't trust my family, couldn't trust anybody. And now I'm like, oh God, Jason Wallace, you really fucked me up. And that's why I'm making these videos, because I'm like, oh fuck, there's a baby. Like, I don't know what to do with this baby. I don't know where I'm supposed to go to pop this baby out and take care of it. And that's why I say the shitty things I say about it, because I'm like, because it's the truth. Like, who the fuck? I love this baby. I wish I could have it. I wish I could take it and take care of it, you know. But I can't do it all alone. I can't. Like, this is hard. I could do it alone if I had the finances. Yeah, if you pay me, I'll do it all alone. I don't care. But the fact of it is, the father is just a piece of trash. So the baby is gonna know that later on, and be so fucking ashamed. And then so many people ask me for an abortion, offered an abortion. This child is not having the best of times here. And, like, it's a little pothead already, which is fine. You know, like, I don't see any pothead babies that are, you know, really suffering. Somebody said something stupid about withdrawals. No, he's gonna be just fine. Hopefully there's not more than one in here. Jesus Christ. I don't know what I would do. I'd be completely horrified. But anyway, I love you very much. It's May 25th, 2022. Leticia Collins Servin. And, I just pray everybody's doing well and doing even better than me, you know. Like, I don't get jealousies like that. I really don't. If you're doing well and everything, like, more props to you, but don't shove it in my face. Like, don't try to make me feel bad because I don't have, you know, I have less than. That's not fair. That's not nice. I don't like it when people are mean. I like it when people are nice. And I like cute things and fluffy things, and, you know, I just like to be in my nice space all the time. And sometimes I have to get to the dark space to get to the you know, nice and light place. But deal with it. You caused this monstrosity. You caused this trauma. That's why I have PTSD. That's why I'm disabled. Like, society has created this monstrosity. So Not Leticia. She's just been following the rules as best she can, and then everywhere she turns is like dead end, dead end, dead end. Like, okay, what do you want from me? God, what do you want? Jesus, save me. Take the wheel. All right, I love you guys very much. Have a really good day. I hope I get over this like cold soon. I don't feel good. I got all this runny nose, congestion, all the weather changes, the climate changes, the different traveling and everything, all these contaminants. God, I hope I get over this soon. I'm gonna go get some kind of juice or something right now, I think, to build my immune system. I'm gonna take my vitamins. I look like trash, but hopefully people will still accept me. I got a compliment on this shirt, so hopefully people won't mind. I love you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.